I wanted to give you a little check-in on my Draculaura bag and give you a little tip. If you're working on big pieces like this, especially with gradients and shading, I find that white to black is the hardest gradient to nail. Tin does not offer a lot of gray beads. The most you can find is dark gray and gray. So in order to get something from black to white, you have to get a little creative. Now, this is the front of the bag. It's going to be a giant skull, so I have a lot of black to white gradient to do. And my favorite way to do this without having a ton of color variation is to go from black to dark gray to gray opaque, and then finally to light silver and then white. Want to expand the color range between black and white even more, I recommend getting the medium silver pearl from Bead Tin. I hope this was, I don't know, I felt the need to, I don't think this applies to literally anybody but me, but I want you to know. This is taking so long.
Welcome, babies, to the Fruity Pebbles Castle of Torment, a scary castle with 100 rats.
I love to create, and I love creating for other people just as much. So when my sister sent me this photo and asked if I could recreate it for her, I felt totally inspired. I ended up having to use clear monocord, which I hate, but it's what I had on hand and it got the job done. It also allowed the beads to move really freely while still holding tight. I took my sister's measurements, the diameter of the chest, and where I need the triangles to go. I did deviate from the original reference photo so I could have more of a fitted silhouette. And here's how that is looking. Very bikini-like. So I lengthened the bottom before attaching the back. I've never made clothes using the right angle weave stitch, and it took a lot of trial and error. It took a lot of trial and error and more beads than I'd like to admit, but I think the final product was totally worth it. This has got to be one of my favorite projects so far. Here the top is on my sister. She paired it with this purple top, and I think it is so cute. Like I said, totally worth it. If you see me pretty frequently, you'll know that this mess was actually this mess before I had to cut it up. Starting over always sucks, but I promise that this is worth it. The pink and white color theme actually reminded me of strawberry milk. So for the waistband, I whipped up a pretty quick pattern of strawberries, then kept repeating the pattern until it fit around my waist without stretching. If you want to recreate this look, I do actually have this pattern up on my Patreon, and it's free, so feel free to check it out. Moving on, with the waistband done, I can finally move on to the skirt. I hook onto the waistband and go through one of the bottom beads and begin my X base. Every 2 rows, I'm going to increase the amount of base beads I use between the hook beads. On the last row, I had 5 beads between each hook bead. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that helps someone. Anyway, the skirt is finished, but I need more flair. I use these faceted pear beads to add a little bit more intrigue to the bottom of the skirt. This made everything look a bit more finished, and definitely worth starting over. Thank you for watching. I've said this before, but I don't often work with pastels. I much prefer working with neons or vibrant colors. But I've realized a lot of what's in my wardrobe is actually pastel. So I wanted to create something that would match those pastel pieces in my closet. If you've seen my videos before, you definitely know what's going on here. I'm creating another star belt. I've grown to really love the first belt that I made, which is also made in pastel. But I was craving a rainbow version of my first belt. In fact, as soon as I finished the first belt, this idea was already in the back of my mind. But I thought if I made 2 star belts in a row, you guys might get a little bored. So I gave it some time, but I hadn't stopped thinking about it since then. I ended up creating 7 stars, 1 for each color of the rainbow and a second pink one. Then I attached the stars using jump rings, as well as a lobster clip to hook it to my waist. Here's how it turned out. I really like it. Now, usually I would never tuck in a sweater, but I thought it was appropriate to show you the belt more. I really adore this piece. Thank you for watching. This is a candy shaker cube. It doesn't do much, but it does make this sound. I want to put this shit on my wrist. I take 8 beads and put them onto my string and tie that into a circle. And much like a candy star, I put my points on to make it look like a square. Once I have all of my squares, I go ahead and tie them together using scrap string. I fill my square with beads and... perfect! Now I just have to repeat that 3 times. Carson Like Arson has a much better in-depth tutorial on his TikTok. I highly encourage you to check it out. This is the last step. I have to attach them. I'll be honest, I had no idea what I was doing here, but 3 beads between the cubes and pulling the string really tight seemed to do the trick just fine. It holds its form much better than I thought it would, and I think if you want it to be extra obnoxious, you could fit more squares in those empty spaces there. But for my purposes, I'm happy with my silhouette. Morning! Today I'm going to take you with me while I go shopping for candy supplies. We're going to head to Walmart, and people always ask me where I get my string, and it's here. There are so many options. If you have money to spend, I recommend this one. It is expensive, but it is thick. For beginners, this is a really good cord elastic. It's pretty cheap too. The Go Create Bead and Stretch is my go-to. It won't work for everyone, but it works for me. If you're a candy beginner, Walmart has some pretty good options for you. There are some really good bead selections here. Here I am running away because old people were staring at me. Walmart's toy selection is actually a pretty good place to find candy charms. I personally like to use LOL dolls as charms. Someone tore this one open. Poor Scorpio. Here I am checking out. I know I get asked where I get my beads and string pretty frequently, so I hope I answered some questions.
I am completely mentally sound.
Let's do some candy organizing. I have this art chest that sits outside of my room instead of in my room, and I thought it would be appropriate to keep my newer candy cuffs in here. Starting out with, I'm gonna throw all these star cuffs in here. I made a set of rainbow ones earlier this year, or was it last year? I don't know. I made them, and you can obviously tell I got better as I went along. Speaking of star cuff, here's a really poor rotator. Next up, here's just a pink cute cuff I made. I don't even think I made a video about that one. BC was a great help, as you can see, during this whole process. Anyway, moving on to my pre-cure cuffs. Here's my Cure Black rotator, and then my Cure White rotator. Yeah, Cure White. These pieces are massive. The shiny luminous cuff with a mini rotator. Cure Bright and Cure Egret. Or is it Cure Bloom and Cure Windy? And here are my most recent cuffs. My Cure Dream cuff with a mini rotator, and I really love that piece. And my Cure Rouge with another mini rotator. I don't like this one as much. And there you go. Thank you for watching.